histoire ici.
And indeed, Jackie Ickx did have a great reception as he drove his 1969 Le Mans winning GT40 around the course. Jackie, the only man ever to have won Le Mans 6 times. He spoke a little about what he remembers, particularly the speeds at night, the heat, and was telling us how thrilled he was to be back at Le Mans and be honoured in this way. He'd been given the keys to Le Mans, the first ever honorary citizen with a motor racing background. One of the true legends of Le Mans. Back to the present, the crowds had built up through Wednesday, Thursday, the rest day of Friday, and as we came towards 4 o'clock, the grid began to clear. The Audi drivers got ready at the end of their warm-up lap. Alan McNish there jumping out. Frank Biela preparing to lead off the line, and Michele Alboreto in the third of the Audis. The Brabham, Magnussen, Andretti Paynos would be started by young David Brabham. And this was one of the dark horses, the Olive Garden-sponsored Lola with the Jardex-type Formula One engine, also used in this Courage C60, very quick with young Gary Formato. And in GTS, the second class, Beretta, Wendling and Dupuis, winners last year, unlikely not to have a good race this time. Pescarolo's helmet colours reproduced on the Courage. The mechanics make the final adjustments, and they set off on their final warm-up lap. Not much need to weave around to get heat in the tyres on a day in which the temperature inside the commentary booth was 42, the temperature outside for the spectators was 34, and the track temperatures were causing the tyre technicians considerable concern. So, the grid. McNish had set it on pole, his teammate Biela just behind him, but Christensen had set that time. Then came the Paynoses. Some of the Cadillacs, led by the Dams French private car.
Mesdames, Messieurs, êtes-vous prêts? Les étoiles, le son, le départ des 68e 24 heures du Mans donné par Jackie Ickx et les Audi qui s'élancent tout de suite.
So Jackie Ickx himself dropped the flag on the starters, and the question in the early laps was, would Brabham in the Paynos take the fight to the formation of the three front-running Audis as they swept down towards the S's for the first time in 24 hours of motor racing? The crowd still fresh enough to be excited at this stage. And out onto the Mulsanne straight with the mighty roar of the Paynos in hot pursuit of the three V8 turbocharged powered Audis, a different noise altogether. McNish, Biela, Alboreto, Brabham. And down towards Indianapolis. The short shoot to Arnage. And away up what is now an equally fast part of the course compared to the Mulsanne straight towards the Porsche curves and thence back to home. The wailing Judd engine in the blue, red and white striped speedy car, and a problem straight away for the first of the Chrysler-powered Reynards run by the Oreca team. A big disappointment for Yannick Dalmas, 4 times winner, and out on the very first lap. And a spin immediately with a Philippe Gache actually waving his apologies to those he gave such a fright to. Do you see that hand in the air there? Neat avoidance by the second Hiroki Kato-driven Paynos. Down in GTS, it's already Chrysler Viper against Corvette, and we've gone past, there's an incident there at the side of the track. That is indeed the second of the privately Dams-entered Motorola-sponsored Cadillacs, and there is a huge fire brewing underneath that, which has brought out the pace car, itself, ironically, a Cadillac. Look at the mess. Goossens, Townsend and Colby. That car had been wrecked in qualifying by Colby, and perhaps the rebuild not as secure as it might have been. No other explanation for a fire on lap 4. That lost us over 40 minutes under the pace car and allowed, in a series of circumstances, David Brabham to get into the lead in the Paynos.
Penos numéro 11. Ah oui, David Brabham qui joue des rétros.
Now, Penos against Audi, the first time we'd really seen them head-to-head and being tracked down the straight there. Brabham absolutely determined that the McNish-driven car shall not pass as they came down to the first chicane on the Mulsanne straight. McNish furious about what had happened under the yellow, which through a series of marshalling issues and a very slow car stuck in gear meant he'd lost a lot of time. Determined now to get back in front of Brabham. Very early on in the race for everyone to be running this hot, but they were. And here again on the next lap, there is the McNish car right past the Penos. The French commentator over the PA system also getting equally excited because the second Audi is right behind them. As you can see, already well in among the back markers. A regular stop, but oh no, a disaster there for the Cadillac team with the Corvette, their sister company, leaving right alongside them, throwing tires across the nose of the Cadillac. No harm done. This is on board with the sole BMW, the 1998 car, here being driven by car owner Thomas Pescher, due to share with Jean-Marc Gounon and Jeff Lees. Very pretty little car and an expected top 6 finisher. Cato drove exceptionally well in the early stages in the second of the works Penoses, due to share with the flame-haired Johnny O'Connell. And there's a car in the barrier, and that is Eric van der Poel. Eric has not had a happy time at Le Mans in recent years. You'll remember he was very badly injured last year, and now he is embedded in the tyres there, but maybe they can get him out. Oh dear, yes, that will have given the mechanics some work to do. In on the rear wing and then him also at the front nose as well. The Audis continue on their remorseless way, moving effortlessly through the Harbour Porsche there, running in GT3. There is a whole series of these GT3 Porsches running in the overall GT class. That's the 4th class in the race, and not quite moving out of the way of Michele Alboreto, who will not be amused by that lack of mirror usage. And indeed, back in the pits, there's Van der Poel's car being taken into the garage to be worked on. You can only have 4 people working on the car in the pit lane, so the sensible thing to do is back it in. After 2 hours of racing, the Audis were first and second. Brabham still in there with a shout in front of the 3rd Audi. And here he is. Brabham stayed at the wheel for a very long stint, a remarkable performance in such high temperatures in the notoriously hot front-engine Penos. The Audi's there just lapping the class-leading GT3 car entered by the American Dick Barber, which had dominated from the very beginning of this race and was expected to do so throughout. They'd already swept all before them in their races in America. Driven by the great Bob Wallach, himself and his 30th Le Mans, assisted by Lucas Lohr and Dirk Müller. Johnny O'Connell, and that's a big accident. That is a big accident between 2 of the Porsches, and this is a moment which really worries the prototype drivers. Their tyres are running over, accident debris, punctures are a possibility, and what's happened there, that's the loss of a wheel on the Dutch-entered Racing Team Holland, and it looks as though something's broken at the back. Jan Lammers, Peter Cox and Tom Coronel. It's not broken, he's lost the wheel, and Coronel determined to retrieve it. I'm not sure if he's going to be allowed to do that, running around the track. And that's 2 wheels on the dirt for Stefan Ortelli in the lead car, and he has smacked the barrier. And if you saw that, he pushed a photographer right off the back on the rebound there. Ortelli in difficulty here, sideways across the track, between Indianapolis and Arnage corners. But well done, Stefan, he's got it going again. Clouds of dust from the other side of the track. Rather surprised Japanese Penos coming upon him there. Ortelli then to recover that and hold on to his lead, having given the Audi team management a heart attack. The works Cadillacs running strongly in the opening stages, but nowhere near the pace of the Audis. Ortelli bringing the car safely through. That's not Ortelli now. That is Laurent Aiello now at the wheel. Been a driver change. Just 18 seconds between the number 9 and the number 7 Audi. Still quite close this early on in the race, but now we see the first of the Paynoses being caught by the third of the Audis. It's beginning to move towards the darker part of the afternoon, shadows falling across the course. Back markers slightly impeding the Paynos there. That is going to make the Audi's task a bit easier. Blue flags waving from the marshals, but that's not going to discourage them. No. Room permitted, and that now reasserts the order with an Audi 1-2-3 in front of the leading Paynos. Tom Christensen at the wheel of that third Audi and moving extremely rapidly. He, of course, a former Le Mans winner on his debut arrival here at Le Mans. And indeed, that is his fastest lap. But lap times this year down quite a bit over last year as a result of the aerodynamic tweaks that all the cars had to carry to prevent, and that's a stop and go. That's a stop and go for the Cadillac, probably as a result, yes, definitely, of Van der Poel's indiscretion with the Corvette's tyre. Yes, no, lap times down at Le Mans this year after the famous flying Mercedes incident of 1999. The organisers very keen indeed to put some measure on the top speeds, extra aerodynamic flaps on the rear of the wing, the gurney flaps. And that's the Oreca team in formation. Obviously, the Vipers in the lead of the GTS class. And there's a problem again for Cadillac not having a lucky race. That's the, and he's right down a complete puncher. He's got to try and bring it all the way back from Arnage to the pits. Cadillac number 1, that's the Andy Wallace car. And in GTS, the Chrysler Vipers have it over the 2 Works Corvettes, with the first of the private Vipers running in 6th place. And that's a problem, sadly, for young Gary Formato, sharing with Philippe Gache in the Courage with the Peugeot engine. Running order at the end of 5 hours, 9 o'clock in the evening, the first 3 Audis, with the Olive Garden Lola still making a beautiful noise, but not running in its expected position. Mimo Sciattarella been very quick in that car, both in pre-qualifying and in qualifying itself, and a lot expected of it. And another dark horse was the Pescarolo Courage Peugeot, driven by Bourdais, Grouillard and Clerico. That car looking strong and running reliably, having started just 17th on the grid. As dusk turns towards night, always a concern for the prototype drivers among the much slower cars on the Mulsanne straight. Is everybody using their mirrors? No obvious problems for the lead car, with Laurent Aiello there at the wheel. The Japanese-driven and entered Team Dragon Paynoses were thundering on to great effect. That one driven by Tsuchiya, Kondo and Aida. And this is the works car with the great Mario Andretti himself bringing the car in. The world's media cluster round. Mario, 60 years old this year, desperately seeking to add a Le Mans win to his Indy 500 and Formula One World Championship titles. Mario helping young David Brabham in. Odd to think that Mario raced against David's father in Grand Prix back in the early 70s. So, nighttime at Le Mans, the party begins. The funfair gets started, the big wheel begins to turn, and some spectators head off for bed, but no rest for the drivers. The temperature at Le Mans, even as dusk fell, held up very high indeed, and engines, gearboxes, tyres, and of course the drivers continued to take a pounding right into the night. This terrifying device spent the whole 24 hours taking passengers up to the top for the big drop. Great view of the entrance to the pit lane, though. The Speedy-sponsored Courage with the Judd engine, after various problems, was circulating very rapidly. And that's a very big problem for the Lola. That's a very second-hand looking car. That's Emanuele Naspetti in his first drive for the team, not perhaps winning the popularity contest with the team managers. He's put it into the wall, but he has managed to get it back to the pits where they may be able to effect some sort of repairs. The Italian team all set to fall apart on the car and see what they can do to fix the problems and get Sciattarella, Naspetti and De Rodriguez out there again. Through the early part of the night, the Audis continued on their remorseless way. A sight we saw rather too often for Cadillac's liking was Eric van der Poel sitting patiently in the pits while the car was being worked on. They had terrible trouble getting the brakes unjammed so they could get the wheel off to get to change the pads, and resorted to some rather agricultural looking Detroit iron in order to chip it off. That's Bill Riley, the designer of what was the Riley and Scott chassis, now called Cadillac, with the 5-litre V8 North Star engine in it. Particularly at the S's, the crowd stays on through the night. The organisers estimated the crowd this year at well over 210,000 people, of which they say around 60,000 had travelled from Britain, as is the great tradition. The Dams Motorola, the number 3 car, continued to run very strongly this part of the evening, being pedalled by Eric Bernard, Emmanuel Collard and Frank Montagny. The Audi in for a routine stop. Mechanics checking the brakes. No, maybe it's not going to be routine. They're looking for something. No, they're satisfied that all is secure. On goes the new tyre. But wait a minute, the car is being taken into the garage. The lead car is being taken into the garage here at Le Mans. And the rear tail section's coming off. Audi have clearly got a problem here on the McNish car, on the lead car, Aiello, McNish or Telly. New hope, perhaps, for the Paynozes. There have been rumours circulating in the media about some reliability problems that Audi had during their final 24-hour test at the Manicourt circuit. Gearbox problems in particular were being pointed at. But Paynos know that if they're to beat the might of Audi, they need a solid, reliable run, while Michele Alboreto looks on anxiously, wanting to know that his car, the number 7 car, is not going to be affected by any similar problems. This a more routine stop, fuel in. Alboreto's now in the car. Alboreto very much a favourite son of the Audi management, having driven such a strong race here at Le Mans last year. The second of the Chrysler engine Reynard prototypes, entered by a raker in those red PlayStation colours, did manage to run on without too many problems for a car that is in fact completely untried. Chrysler say that they're on a 3-year programme. Indeed, any sensible manufacturer says they're on a 3-year programme when they come to Le Mans. In the GT class, as you can see, it's all Porsches with the Dick Barber car way in front. Jeff Lee's there, looking very unhappy. The GTC prepared 1998 BMW, causing problems. Butch Leitzinger, due to drive the Cadillac, doing his neck exercises before he gets into the car. And this is another efficient stop for the Dick Barber Racing Run class-leading GT Porsche. A few hardy souls hang on over the fence in order to watch what's going on, while Biela brings the second place car. At this stage now, of course, it's moved up into first place with the problems on the number 9 car. Thunders on through the night. It's called the 24 hours of endurance, and that's what it requires from everybody, particularly the mechanics and the team managers on the pit wall. Great evocative sights, the very essence of Le Mans. Johnny Molam there from England in his GT Porsche, having a quick break. And a chance for the Audi mechanics to enjoy some proper German sausage. But out on the track, as always, the problem remains slower traffic. Johnny O'Connell there being frightened by the Genret Brockman Manthe Racing GT3 Porsche running much slower than him through the middle of the Porsche curves. And that is indeed the fastest lap. The cooler temperatures of the evening allowing McNish to make better use of the track. And back in the pits, Paynos have another stop. O'Connell takes over from Cato. Rest time in the Oreca pit, and this is the BMW. The BMW is off, and that is a pity. Jean-Marc Gounon there had a big spin. He's switched everything off, engine lights, trying to hide in the gravel trap. Jeff Lees had driven that car very quickly, and indeed the owner, Thomas Pecher, had been no sluggard. Jean-Marc, all his experience, and this is disaster for the engine of one of the prototypes. And that is the Stefan Johansson-driven number 24 Lola, and that engine has given up in a big way. Johansson been sharing with his owner, Jim Matthews, and Guy Smith from Britain. The car had gone very quickly in qualifying and in the early stages of the race, and a big problem there for the number 22 Paynos, which is shredding its bodywork. Shredding its bodywork after another puncture. There's been a spate of punctures already. Very tough through the night to drive a car back on its rim from way out in the country back to the pits, but that's the only way you're going to stay in the race. The number 7 car, the third of the Audi team, the Alboreto and Apt car, which he shares with Rinaldo Capello. And a struggle here in the Courage Pescarolo Peugeot engine car's pit. You can see the deflation on that rear tyre and the damage it could have caused to the back. The mechanics now very anxious to get that wheel off, make sure there hasn't been too much damage from flailing rubber. Everything's got very hot. Very hard to get the tyre off the rim. They're going to need to check everything. Very, very, very hot fingers as they try and remove. And a further puncture, even as we were watching that action, one of the Audis has had a puncture. We can't see which car it is at the moment, also running on its rim. Look at the sparks through the night. But even that excitement is not enough to prevent some of the mechanics catching up on their sleep. It is the number 7 car. Audi very efficiently taking it into the garage, and there's similarly a problem for the lead Paynos. The lead Paynos, which has been running so strongly in David Brabham, Jan Magnussen and Mario Andretti's hands, has got big problems. The Audi team, clinically efficient, damage repaired. Mario has to sit patiently waiting for the resolution of the problem, while the Audi storms back into the race right at the end of the pit lane, so no need to hang around on the rev limiter there, obeying any pit lane spin limits, straight out and into the race. Don Paynos, you see, at the back there, in the grey jacket, looking worried at his number 1 car. That means that number 11 Paynos has dropped down to 5th, with the O'Connell Cato Raffanel car moving up into 4th place. A bitter blow for Don Paynos. Biela storms onward in the lead. Gounon has managed to get the BMW back to the pit lane, but nobody's very happy and looks in any great rush to repair that car. The GTS class still dominated by the 51, 52 and 53 cars from Oreca, with the red Chrysler Vipers in front of the 2 Works Corvettes, and that is the lead GTS car of Beretta, Wendlinger and Dupuis. Very fancy goggles while the mechanic rests. And the second Paynos to have a puncture comes in. This now is out at Arnage, where the camera's picked up his problem, so he's come a long way back. Nothing left of that car at all. Yves de Schonack listens carefully to what Olivier Beretta has to tell him about holding on to the lead of the GTS class, and the Olive Garden car finally retires. The night drags on for the mechanics, but not for those who have to work and efficiently turn round the quick pit stops that are the hallmark of the Oreca team. The very rapid Olivier Beretta gets back in. Karl Wendlinger, the former Sauber Grand Prix driver, is out. And that's one of the Paynoses in the gravel trap. The ever-efficient Marshall's trying to retrieve it. That's the number 12 car. I think that's being driven at the moment by Johnny O'Connell. And they've got it back to the pits. There's more work to be done. No peace for the Paynos mechanics. When the Cadillacs are running, they run quite strongly. That's Max Angelilli sharing with Wayne Taylor and Eric van der Poel. And slowly the night draws to an end and a French dawn is upon us, predicted again to be a very, very hot day. The field is of course thinned out through the night, but the retirements have not been that many. Running order then, after 15 hours, the three Audis remorselessly at the top, still pursued by the Paynos, and Alan McNish running as hard as ever, still determined to get past the Biela Christensen car, and again a new record for this event, though several seconds off last year's quickest times by the Toyota. McNish has now driven nearly 4 stints in succession, not getting out of the car at fuel stops. The Dams Motorola, the number 3 car, there with Eric Bernard at the wheel, has continued to run rapidly. As have the entire Chrysler Viper Oreca team, with the 51 car still leading the number 52 car driven by Duez, Huisman and Archer. The Gash Courage still running very quickly indeed. They're nipping past one of the LMP 675 cars, that the WR, with the turbo engine in the back of it, a sort of central monoplace, and a continuing problem now for the number 15 car, already been in the wall, and that time it is very definitely in the wall. Jean-Marc Gounon, I'm afraid, has had that car off twice, and this time for the poor speedy Courage with the Judd engine, that looks as though Gary Formato has really got a problem there, stopped at the side of the road. The 79 GT3 Porsche smoking. I think that's not tyre trouble, that's engine trouble. Marshall's keen to get the third of the Oreca Vipers back onto the track, and that is one of the WR cars with a fire on, and everyone very keen to get out of the way. Bouvet, Daoudi and Xavier Pompidou, that is there. McNish comes in. Mortelli prepares to take over. That has been a remarkable stint by Alan McNish, while the Marshals restore some order to the fire-ravaged WR. The number 7 car continuing to hold down third place. They're checking something at the front of the car there. That's because it's new brake disc time on the third place Audi. Though the teams always hope to get through the 24 hours without having to change the entire disc, they change pads quite often. Every now and then you have to deal with that problem. And back in full daylight, while the temperature rose again, the Paynos, restored to reasonable health, out there able to lead on the track at least from the Dams Cadillac, which had risen through the night up to 4th place. And that is a very big accident for the Chamberlain Viper. Walter Brune has had a big accident, and that's a puncture. He had a puncture before that went wrong, and that car has hit front and rear. Walter Brune, a very lucky man there. Hugh Chamberlain, the owner of that car, not so lucky. That looks like a very second-hand Viper. Problems there for the moment for the second place in class GTS number 52 Oreca Viper, which has indeed now moved down to third place as a result of that problem, allowing this, the number 64 Chevrolet Corvette, entered by the factory, fully backed in typical GM yellow and white colours with GMAC and Good Wrench sponsorship, been extremely well driven throughout the night. Not the car they were expecting to be their lead car, they were expecting that to be the 63 car, while Yves de Schonack supervises repairs in his team's pit. The mechanics demanding what it is they need of each other. And this remains the most successful of the American cars. After the problems with the Paynos, the number 3 Dams entered. Bernard Collard Montagny, here Frank Montagny at the wheel, driven Cadillac LMP. Great on-board shots. The drivers feel that the engine is very strong indeed in this car. They've been less happy with the handling during qualifying, but in race trim, they seemed to be very happy with the package overall, as long as it kept running efficiently, unlike the troubles with the works cars. Montagny, not an experienced long-distance driver, promoted from his experiences with the Dams Formula 3000 team, but sharing that car with the highly experienced Eric Bernard and Emmanuel Collard. And the Pescarolo Courage had moved well through the dawn and through the early hours of sunlight up into 5th place, being very sensibly driven. Sébastien Bourdais, last year's French Formula 3 champion, being particularly quick in that car. Despite Alan McNish's best efforts, the speedy combination of Frank Biela, Tom Christensen and Emanuele Pirro has kept the number 8 Audi out with at least 1 lap lead, and the number 7 car a further lap behind. By mid-morning on Sunday, Audis were running a very efficient high-speed demonstration with just the Dams Cadillac to worry about in 4th place. The Japanese Paynoses, after their delays, were back on track again and continuing to try and run strongly, but now the 23 car of Suzuki and the 2 Kagayama brothers was in front of its sister 22 car. The battle in GTS was now really hotting up. Number 64 is the Corvette driven by expatriate Briton Andy Pilgrim, now doing all his racing in the United States, Kelly Collins of the United States, and Frank Frion, a regular Le Mans driver offering some valuable local experience. And the battle there, right head-to-head, with a very sharp cut back in there by the number 52 Viper to retake 2nd place in cars behind the dominant Beretta Wendlinger Dupuis car. Alboreto sets out for another stint, and the battle between the Viper and the Corvette goes on. But that's not going to help Andy Pilgrim, because Michele Alboreto has pulled out, unusual for a prototype to hold up a GTS car, but that's exactly what happened. The battle slightly for the 2nd and 3rd place is now resolved by virtue of that manoeuvre by Alboreto. The unfortunate Corvette being held up just when he thought he was going to close again on the number 53. That's the Nye Amorim, David Donoghue and Anthony Beltoise driven car. Beltoise was very quick in this. He is, of course, the son of the Grand Prix driver Jean-Pierre Beltoise from the early 70s. The American crew for the Corvette had kept their car in with a shout through efficient pit stops. They were actually in the pit next door to the Oreca team, and there was a constant battle between them. They could each watch what each other was doing. Strategy in the GTS, and they've coming in together now, a head-to-head battle of the mechanics on the air wrenches. Fuel in first and driver change. And now it's on to the tyre change. Quick clean of the screen. Andy Pilgrim holds on. And the Viper boils back into the fray, just in front of the Corvette that pulls out almost at the same time. Good, close endurance racing.
Oh, la Cadillac numéro 3.
And that's Emmanuel Collard. Collard in the Dams Cadillac has had some sort of suspension failure there that's pushing the tyre up against the bodywork, and it's happened right opposite the pits. That means that poor Emmanuel has got to go round the entire 8.45 mile lap, and that damage is just going to get worse, and it's going to cause more and more problems to the rear bodywork. It also means there's going to be more rubbish on the track. And the director has cut to the Pescarolo Courage because this means that young Sébastien Bourdais and Emanuele Clerico and Olivier Grouillard have got a real chance of moving up from 5th to 4th place, because just further round the same lap you can see the damage to Collard's suspension, the tyre smashing into the bodywork. That is going to cause that car a major delay. He's pressing on, but you could hear the whole of the underside of the car scraping along the ground, while the Courage gets back another lap, heading towards taking on the 4th place from the Dams Cadillac. That car has been extremely well prepared, and Bourdais in particular has been very quick. Interestingly, for race weekend itself, the amount of Peugeot badging on the car has increased considerably, and there's quite an effort here from the Peugeot engineers, and he has managed heroically to get the car back into the pits. The entire Dams team falls upon the car, and interestingly, so do some of the Works Cadillac mechanics from the next door pit, keen to help out and get the Dams team car back onto the race if they possibly can. Smiles all round in the Pescarolo pit while a driver change is awaited. If they make use of this time now, they can really move up from 5th to 4th. The expectations of France now resting upon this car, because it's obvious that the damage to the Cadillac is very severe, and it's going to take a lot of work, a lot of head shaking and despondent body language in the Dams pit. So while the Pescarolo team play catch-up, you can see them then showing as in 4th place, now in front of the Cadillac. And the first of the Penoses is the number 23 car, that's the Kageyama brothers, with Suzuki in the Dragon Penos. Down in GT3, the Dick Barber run number 83 car with Bob Wallach, Dirk Muller and Lucas Law has just gone effortlessly through the night, showing the way to all the other privateer teams, the other 11 privateer Porsche teams in GT3. They were leading at this point from the 73 car, and Britain's Johnny Molam in the number 82 car in 4th place, hoping to catch up a few places. The silver Reynard in front of the Audi there is the really only one of the remaining cars in the LMP 675 class, the Canadian-entered Multimatic sponsored Reynard with the 3-litre normally aspirated Nissan engine, just not quick enough to have competed early on with the Volkswagen turbo-powered Reynards in that LMP 675 class, but unreliability has taken most of those cars out. Now this car has been lying second in GT behind the Dick Barber car we were just talking about. This is a number 73 car of Atsushi Yogo, Hideo Fukuyama and Bruno Lambert, who's been particularly quick, but problems for everyone. This is in the GTS class, the GT2 Porsche of the Freisinger team, which had been running very well, though as yet no threat to either the Vipers or the Corvettes, but they have got big problems with Wolfgang Kaufmann at the wheel there, sharing with Yurikawa Hana and Katsunori Iketani. Puncture's a real problem for everyone in this race. There's a lot of glass fibre, carbon fibre, stone and rubber loose on the track that is causing all sorts of puncture problems for all sorts of people. Even the Audis have been afflicted, as we saw, but that hasn't stopped them holding first, second and third after 21 hours and a quarter of racing at Le Mans 2000. That shot really sums up the story of the race. The Paynoses are still in there, gamely trying, but no problem for the Audis. The man from Yokohama sharing the problems with the men from Michelin and indeed Goodyear. Tyre temperatures have been critical and the track is very hot indeed. Christensen out. Emanuele Pirro in, who we saw right at the top of the show, speaking in terrible French to the crowd. And that's a puncture for Mario. Mario Andretti now falls victim to the problems that everybody else has suffered. The world's media gathers to see what the great man's been up to. But as we were just saying, the problem has been the rubbish on the track. The carbon fibre shards put Mario right off and into the barrier. That's a great save. He had a puncture to deal with, and that's a big heavy car, really nowhere to go. Very unfortunate indeed for Mario Andretti, whose dream has clearly slipped away. Victory at Le Mans is not to be his, to equal the great Graham Hill's unique record of wins at Le Mans, Indianapolis and a World Championship. After the demise of the Dams Cadillac, really the Corvettes have got the most to show of the American visitors. This race billed by the Le Mans organisers as Europe versus the United States. Well, Europe winning very much, indeed Germany and Ingolstadt very much winning at the moment, with Audis still running 1, 2, 3, the Paynoses with all sorts of difficulties, the Cadillacs by and large dropped a long way back, and only in GTS are the Corvettes still a threat to the Vipers, and the Vipers themselves, though they've been turned into such efficient machines by the French Oreca team, they are of course very much an American muscle car. Emanuele Pirro in this stint of his was very quick indeed, pressing on very hard, determined to see if he couldn't close the gap to his teammates running first and second. In fifth place is the second works Paynos, the O'Connell, Cato and Raffanel car, but untroubled at the top of the GTS order remains Beretta, Wendlinger and Dupuis by no means outshone by the two former Formula One men who have made such an impression on GT racing in the past 2 and 3 years, not just leading their class by 5 laps, but lying a remarkable 8th overall. This is the team that, after all, won the Daytona 24 Hours this year outright. And dramas again for the Porsches. That's the Michel Ligonnet, Gabriel Rosa, Franco Babini, number 81 car. And he's going to go back out again without a front windscreen, which will cause all sorts of pressurization problems inside the car. And that is the bonnet. And he's left the pit lane, so he's got to go round the entire lap. The Haberteur Porsche has now got a real problem. He can't be seriously, yes he is going to try and drive an entire lap of Le Mans looking out of the door, and I just hope that he is not going to trip up any of the more competitively running cars. Tremendous cheers from the spectators who admire the spirit, if not the method, as he disappears underneath the Dunlop Bridge with his view completely obscured to try and lap Le Mans, seeing nothing through the windscreen. Drivers of the very rapid prototypes, such as the Paynos, will be hoping they don't come across him. Pescarolo talking to his drivers, looking impassive there, just asking everybody to keep it calm. We're in 4th position. Audis may yet have a problem, Let's just keep it running like clockwork and running to team schedule. It's been an impressive performance by the Pescarolo team. Frank Biela there, nervous about the lead that he holds with Christensen and Pirro. The Vipers number 51 and 53 beginning to form up now, as are the Audis. That's all three Audis pulling away from Arnage underneath appropriately the Audi Quattro bridge. And right at the very end, a broken suspension on the rear of the Porsche of Kaufmann, Hane and Ikitane. After the problems they had earlier, thrashing that rubber around must have damaged the suspension, and they can only walk away and talk about what might have been, while the Audi team gathers on the pit wall, Biela and Christensen with the curly hair, preparing for a formation finish by the Works Audi team, a reward for 2 years of investment, 2 years of hard engineering graft, endless testing. Emanuele Pirro has managed to pick up an Audi flag from somewhere at the side of the track. And this has to be the slowest Le Mans finish for a very long time indeed. They're holding up everybody, but they are going to get their photo formation finish. Emanuele Pirro, with the straps undone, is half out of the car, and he is going to cross the line first. A great reward for a wonderful drive by him, Emanuele Pirro, with his teammates Frank Biela and Tom Christensen, and the huge Audi assembled guests, directors, press corps, friends and engineers, the men who've really done the work, gather on the pit wall to welcome their drivers home. However hard Alan McNish drove, he couldn't close up. And pleasure too for the Paynos team. Every one of them have had their problems, but they crossed the line, all 5 Paynoses, in a great roar, carefully coordinated from the pits by radio. But the Paynoses too have got something to be pleased about, but not as pleased as the little Pescarolo Sport team that has done such a great job with that new Peugeot turbo engine. And sportingly, the prototype Reynard Chrysler Oreca car pulls to one side to allow Olivier Beretta, Carl Wendlinger and Dominic Dupuis to crush the opposition, including the Works Corvettes. Beretta there absolutely delighted with his drive, arms aloft, waving to the crowd. And the Donahue Amorim Beltoise Viper was second in class, with Pilgrims, Collins and Freon just in front of their teammates in the Corvette. A good result for General Motors, and that will encourage them to come back next year as the crowd gathers underneath the high podium for the traditional victory celebrations as the Audi team, all 9 drivers, take to the podium. A really historic 1-2-3 for the Ingolstadt mark. Biela, Christensen and Pirro have all driven extremely well. Alan McNish looks pleased with his second. We know he wanted more. The Audi management will feel their investment has been justified. And immediately the speculation starts as to whether they will return next year to defend their title. Michele Alboreto very happy indeed. So, the 68th running of the Le Mans 24-hour race, dominated by Audi. A plucky 4th for the Pescarolo Courage with the Peugeot engine, some reward for Paynos in 5th place finish. In GTS, the Chrysler Vipers, 1st and 2nd in front of the Corvettes, a 3rd Viper in 5th place in that class. The number 83 Dick Barber Porsche has really dominated in the GT class, and the LMP 675 cars really nowhere overall. The Canadians just achieving a finish. Henri Pescarolo also delighted, as well he should be, with a new car and a new team of drivers in his first year as a team manager. 24 hours at a very hot June weekend at Le Mans. Next year, 2001, even better. Join us then.